Good afternoon, everyone in the world. Happy Father's Day. I'm sure that it is running already. It always gives you these introductory things while you're setting up. Today's a special day. I just want to get set up here so that I can actually see the comments. And standing in the room with me here is none other than Mr. Joe Visvari. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Kevin.
How you doing today in Vancouver?
Doing all right.
Good.
Sleeping in on a Father's Day.
Good to see you again.
Great to be here.
So I wanted to, this is the part 2 of Images in Vogue, and I wanted to start with you, considering that in reality, I guess that a lot of people on my Patreon page, and maybe people that follow me in general, might think like, they always ask me questions about everything, but everything boils down to you, I think. You are the reason why actually I'm sitting here right now. If it wasn't for you, I would not be sitting here right now, and I can absolutely guarantee you that. So I wanted to start out with you and just talk about your inspirations about, we didn't really touch your base about your history, like how you got into synthesizers and how you got to where you were at such an early time.
Well, for me, I started out as just a kid that wanted to make music. So I always was annoying my parents saying, can we get a piano? Can we get a piano? And the lady that babysat us had a piano. So even before I knew anything about keyboards, I would just sit at the piano and plink out things and play melodies. And I was always interested in that. Eventually we got a piano. I took 10 years of piano lessons, classical piano, Royal Conservatory. And along the way, I started playing music with friends, learning like Elton John songs and Chicago songs, and eventually Yes songs and Genesis songs. And at one point, synthesizers started to show up more. I started listening to more like Tangerine Dream, especially a little bit of Kraftwerk, other bands that use synthesizers, but especially Tangerine Dream, like in 73, 74. Phaedra was my big album of those days. And then, of course, all those prog rock bands like Yes and Genesis, Emerson, Lake and Palmer all had synthesizers. So in 1975, my friend Ed Slick and I got together and we rented a synthesizer. We rented a Roland SH-1000 from Long McQuaid. And I was playing with Ed in a wedding band. We played Italian weddings. But we started doing synthesizer stuff in there. So I was playing little licks. We did like there was an electronic version of Tequila that was out at that time, and we did that, and that started me with synthesizers. Then Ed Slick had a couple of friends who had a studio where the Vancouver Complication album was recorded. Most of it was recorded there, and they had a mini Moog, and they lent it to me and Ed, and so we had that. So in '76, I started playing on a mini Moog. And I don't have it out right now, but I had written a letter to Norland Music, which was the Moog company back in those days in Buffalo, and asked for information about synthesizers. And so they sent me a big package of brochures because I think they thought I was a company that wanted to sell synthesizers. But they sent me all the different brochures. So I used to sleep with a picture of the mini Moog above my bed. People had posters of like, Farrah Fawcett or, your favorite band, but I had a mini one. I would just look at it and imagine what those knobs would do and what it would sound like. And so finally in '76, I had one of those to play with, and I learned a lot from just starting out with the mother of all synthesizers for home use. Was the mini Moog. And so every band I played in, I was always trying to do something synth oriented. So I played in a lot of cover bands and bar bands around BC before getting to Images. And so I would always, just like kind of what we do now with Glenn and I playing an instrumental song before the show starts, I would start a lot of our sets with an instrumental piece by Synergy, or I would do like the intro to Alaska by UK, the CS80. I would do lots of things like that. So I was always experimenting with synths. And when I was a UBC student studying film, I made a lot of soundtracks for student movies using synthesizers at home and editing other things into it. So I learned a lot about audio editing on tape at that time as well.
So what was the first sequencer you remember using?
The first sequencer was the Pro 1.
Wow.
I mean, that was 1981. I didn't use any sequencers. I bought the Pro Soloist in 1978, and a few of those synthesizers had clocks in them that you could use as a clock, and it would trigger something. But I didn't really have note sequencer. So that's why, if you listen to a lot of my playing on the early Images records, I'm the sequencer. I'm playing a sequencer part in some highly repetitive, pattern over and over again, because I was able to do that because of my technical skill. But also, we didn't have any other sequencers. We just had that Pro 1 sequencer.
I learned a lot from that skill that you had, because you would play something by hand and you would get the delay time, and the delay time would turn it into a rhythm.
Yeah.
And then you had your sequence, and it was like, okay, you didn't actually need the sequencer, you just needed Joe.
Well, I learned that playing in the bands before, where once we got a Roland Space Echo, and I was able to duplicate a lot of things that like NASA Slash was doing or Bill Nelson were doing, using the echo to make it sound like it was a sequencer, because you could get a second note. You play one note, you got another note, and you could play a pattern that sounded like it was 16th note sequences. So I did a lot of that, like in the early Images stuff. I was always doing that, playing a pattern that was kind of simple, but then by echoing it, it sounded more like a very complex sequence.
And the song "Politics of Sound" was one of our early songs. Was that something you composed pre-meeting us?
Yeah, I was writing music from early in high school, and then that was a song that I worked on and wrote, and I performed it with my previous band in somewhat a different form. And then I did an all electronic version of it that I made some tapes with, and that's what I presented to you guys when we first met. And that was a song that I've always, the Glenn and Joe Show just performed that most recently at the opening for mid-year. It's a song that sums up a lot of my attitude towards music, and it was kind of about the singer and the band I was in at the time, and not having open ears.
I always found you just to be a great teacher. So it's natural that you are a teacher, but you were a great teacher, Joe. Learning from you made it inspiring and made it like something that would stay with you. And then so when I was like first started rapping on on my own, just using stuff at the rehearsal space, it was like it was challenging, but at the same time you kind of made it more accessible. And I don't know if you remember, you probably have this still. You have it still.
Yeah, I still have it. Yeah,
I don't know if it's backwards out there for you guys. It might be.
No, it looks good. I can see it normally. Yeah, I've got mine. I should have pulled it out. I could have showed it. Plevin probably still has his too.
You'll see what this is. It says official member, Project 83, Skinny Puppy. And then it said on the back, like what we did, Kevin Crompton.
Yeah.
So what's weird?
Keyboards, voices, and noises.
Yeah. And what's really weird is that these cards were one was given to Joe and one was given to Mr. D. Plevin. And that was the original lineup of the name Skinny Puppy, if you can believe it or not, pre-Ogre. And then so we actually recorded a song called Meat Flavored Factor, as it ended up, that's on the Back and Forth cassette. And you and I did that together in the Images in Vogue warehouse. And it was officially the first Skinny Puppy song ever made. So you were almost like responsible for the birth of that band, I guess, as well. So thank you, Joe. Everyone should give a big thank you to Joe. We should call Joe the father. Happy Father's Day.
Grandfather.
You are the grandfather of it all.
I'm not a real grandfather, just your grandfather.
But you're our father too, and that's what's really cool. And what's really nice is that we have the other guys standing by the band, and let's bring in Gary, if he's still there. You still there, Mr. Gary? Let's bring in Ed Shaw. Ed Shaw is there's Ed.
Hello.
Let's bring in Glenn Nelson.
Okay.
I think we're missing Gary somehow.
It's funny. I was just on. I'm just. Hold on. I gotta shut this down.
here we are live now, so I want to just ask you guys a question. Hey, Gary, there you are.
Oh, there.
So we reached a point in Images in Vogue where all of a sudden we found that we had Dawn leaving the band, and there was a new page, a new day had come, and I think one night we had gone to the Love Affair, and had we not seen a band called The Instructions?
Winnipeg.
Is that a true story that you come, Ed? Is that how I first saw you?
Maybe it's how you first saw me, but the first time I saw you guys was in Edmonton. You were playing and we were playing. We were at Scandals, which was in the basement of the Holiday Inn. And it was kind of it was an amazing night in a way. It's the night I met Heather, my wife.
Wow.
And Simple Minds were staying on the same floor as us at the Holiday Inn.
Wow.
And they were at the show. They saw us after our gig. We had heard about this this other show where you guys were playing. Jeff, the keyboard player, me, Heather, and her friend Helen went down to see you guys. And we missed the show, but we saw you guys tearing down, and that was the first time I saw you guys. But then, yeah, I guess it was at the Love Affair. You saw it was the same tour. We were touring through Vancouver. We did Edmonton, Vancouver. We were a Winnipeg-based band at the time.
I remember that the singer said, "The Instructions from Winnipeg."
Yeah, that was Owen. Yeah. That was an awesome band to be in.
You guys were technically also advanced at that time. I remember that we had realized that we were kind of witnessing another electronic band kind of almost in the same realm, and instantly obviously had a common interest. But did you also play after that in Strange Advance or before that?
After that. So it was that tour where Strange Advance approached Derek and I. Derek was the drummer of The Instructions as well.
Let's bring in Derek.
What's that?
Let's bring in Derek.
All right. He's actually, I have him underneath my couch here. He FaceTimed me. He's chasing the chickens in the yard.
I see a shadow in the background.
The chickens have escaped, and he's trying to get them back in the coop.
Wow.
He got him back in, but I can't hang up on FaceTime somehow. There he is. Hey, Derek.
Connecting to audio. Looks like
I am.
There he is.
I had to go chase chickens for about 15 minutes. Mel got mad at me, and they got out of the pen, and they're running down towards the valley. So I got them all back, and we're good now.
Congratulations. So we're just talking about The Instructions from Winnipeg.
The Instruction. Hang on, I'm going to turn this phone off. Sorry about that.
And so, yeah, Derek and Ed were both in The Instructions. And I should formally introduce Derek as the drummer for Images in Vogue ever since, 1985, right?
Yes, exactly.
So that's like
I had some heavy shoes to fill from Kevin Crompton.
Absolutely.
Well, no, I mean, thank you, but you've done a great job. I mean,
Well, thank you.
when
You
a
did
band-
an amazing job. You wrote great drum parts, and I love the way you put stuff together.
it was fun. I mean, I thought that there would be a couple of challenges. Like I think Joe said that Drowned Girl was a bit of a challenge. That I think I was playing opposite to what the drum machine pattern was, and so
You always did everything in a different manner, Brett. I love the way you thought. It was great. It was brilliant.
I left you without instructions.
You'd left me without instructions, but I was in a band with instructions, so I got the instructions and moved forward. Yeah.
So Ed, we were just sort of reminiscing before we came on live that, you know, when you first joined the band, you kind of had a prominent sound with your Evo.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like a very distinctive new sound that I thought was quite, I think the first time I heard you solo in Mushroom Studios was quite an amazing moment. Where did you get your training and style from, or your inspirations?
Training, it was just lots of hours playing. But inspiration, Bill Nelson, Bebop Deluxe. It was Yes, Al Di Meola. There's a whole mix. Robert Fripp, big influence, and then just 70s rock bands. David Bowie and Led Zeppelin, and classic rock gods to emulate.
You and Derek both grew up in Winnipeg?
Yeah.
So that's where you guys would have met. And
Yeah.
is that where you would have formed your first, were you guys always in a band together and then just
Nope. And basically, Owen and I came out, and I told him about Ed playing in Sally Screw and the Drivers.
Yeah.
And we went out to go check him out. And there was Ed running around the stage doing his thing. And then we had a conversation in between sets. Do you remember that, Ed? Going back?
Yeah. Sally Screw and the Drivers. We were so much energy, and
it was a great band, actually. It was a cover
Tons
band,
of
but
fun.
they did a great job of their.
but it was all covers. So it was very interesting to be able to, have the opportunity to work with an original act. So I joined the Instructions. Yeah.
Yeah. Woo woo.
And then how is it that both of you went on to also play in Strange Advance?
That was when we were going across Canada playing and touring. They'd heard, I think Drew and Daryl heard that we were coming into town, and they came and were in the audience when we were playing. Ed and I had no idea. You didn't have any idea, did you, Ed? No.
No, they just showed up. It was Bruce.
They just
Fairbairn
showed up,
with
and
them.
then basically we're playing there, and in between sets, we get called over to. I think they called Ed first, and then Ed called me over, and we sat down. I didn't know who they were, and Bruce Fairbairn was there with him, and basically he explained the band. And I don't know if we knew the band. Did we know the band, Ed? I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, Worlds Away had been out.
Yeah.
It was getting play. That was such an amazing song. So yeah.
And I always tell this story the same thing, but he basically said, and I said this to Ed, same thing. But I remember stupid things. Bruce Fairbairn put his hand out and said, "You're here now. Do you want to be here?" And Ed and I looked at each other, went, "Yeah," and we jumped on board of that. It was kind of funny. And the next set, we were waiting to tell. Do you remember, Ed, how they treated us? The Instructions after, they weren't very happy.
Well, it's understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, Mike, the bass player, we had two hanging mics over the cymbals. He was swinging them, and I had to dodge while I was playing drums. And they were like, just like, what? Do you remember that? You were so pissed off.
I don't remember that part, but yeah, I remember.
I remember that part. Yeah. I remember that part.
Was that before you got into Images then, Ed?
Before what?
Before you got into Images, Ed, that you did.
Oh
this-
yeah. So we went. Derek and I ended up. That was that tour where we spun through. We saw Images in Edmonton. We played Vancouver for a little bit, spun back through Calgary, and went back to Winnipeg.
Oh,
We
okay.
made this arrangement with Strange Advance to kind of help them support this album and maybe help them go forward with the next album.
Right.
It took a few months to get everything organized. Then Derek and I moved out to Vancouver, played with Strange Advance, getting ready to support the album for, 6 months or something, 4 months. But then that just didn't happen. We did a couple of video shows on the island.
We did that TV show.
Yeah, I forget what the name of it was.
And we did a commercial for Molson Canadian. Remember?
Yeah, it was Labatt's Blue to the tune of one
Labatt's
of their
Blue.
tunes. It was
Yeah.
Labatt's Blue.
Yeah.
It's always anyway. It was funny.
Yeah. One of their songs. They just sort of changed the words around.
And then it didn't. Then they went and we're going to record the next album. We did a lot of pre-work. I did a lot of help with arrangements and parts and stuff. But then they went to London and recorded with some other people, and that didn't go over well with us. So we were kind of free agents again. And that's when I ended up, we worked with Annette Ducharme for a while and some other people. But then, I landed with you guys on a kind of trial basis. And I think it was at Harpo's, which something went wrong at that gig, but I think that was when you made me the offer of, okay, let's do this full time.
It must have been a good show.
I guess, I don't know.
Wasn't that the same time when we made the videos for Call It Love and so on like that? The same show?
Around that time, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I think I was on as
There's
a
Glenn.
permanent member.
Didn't we play somewhere where we got fired because we had too much?
Yeah, I think that might have been Harpo's. I don't know. But maybe the sound check went so well.
Are you kidding? I can't remember.
Okay, I can set all the calendar dates right.
So good.
There's Joe.
Harpo's was in March '84.
Okay.
And then after that, we met with Gary Wright and we went to California, did the album, and continued on with that stuff. Then we came back and we recorded Call It Love in Vancouver. And then that gig you're talking about was New York, New York.
Oh.
We got fired because we took up too much room on the stage, if you recall. And we had to pack up the gear while the people were lined up at the door wanting to come in.
Well, couldn't we just take a couple speakers off or something?
No, we just packed up as much as we could because Kim had left Victoria with the truck. So we had no truck.
Oh my goodness.
Plus the rooms that we were given were owned, the rooms were in a hotel owned by the club owner. And so we also now had to pay for the rooms. And we also filmed the Call It Love video and Rescue Me and Save It on that weekend because it was like a plan to get everything to pay for everything else. But of course we didn't get paid at all. So it was like a big end weird weekend. And of course we had to delay your flight. So we lost money on that. Cause remember you were flying back to Winnipeg and then Kim had got these dates added. So you had to change your flight back to Winnipeg for Christmas. Sorry, I remember too.
Crazy times.
Who remembers everything?
I thought there was a lot of energy.
It's the memory bank.
Leaving the sessions at Mushroom when we had done, I think, Everything About You and Promised Land. What were the other two, Joe?
The Swim.
Oh, yeah.
Peculiar.
And what was the fourth one?
Peculiar.
What was the third one?
The Swim.
The Swim. That was always one of my favorite songs that we ever played. I don't know why.
I love that guitar part.
When it was on, it just felt like it was one of those songs where when it came up in the set, I was anxious for
my cat. Sorry.
It just had like that and Everything About You, something about that, and King's Service.
Right.
Those songs would really hit hard. I don't know if it was just the time or whatever, but live gigs were always, I thought, like pretty refreshing to hear some really good sounds and stuff. And then moving with that inspiration down to the Gary Wright world in California, I thought like certainly the only thing that can go wrong here now is that we end up in a producer's house that only wants to work 2 hours a day and then he needs to go to bed. That's kind of like what happened, unfortunately. He's a great guy and his studio was phenomenal. But, he didn't like to work very long. And then I'm surprised actually that, that we were able to accomplish the things that we did under those circumstances.
Give us more time to get to Tower Records.
That's right.
Yeah, the good old days of licks. I was searching for Fad Gadget back then, so
yeah,
I found a lot of Fad Gadget down there at that time. But Ed, you had good times during the creation of it. I remember you were smiling all the time.
What's that?
It seemed like you were smiling all the time.
Down in California?
Down in California.
Yeah, that was a good time. I was rooming with Dale. We were living on cheap avocados and buns. And we were getting out jogging, lots of sun. And like you said, the studio was amazing. You're with Gary Wright, Dreamweaver, Our Love Is Alive. It's like,
yeah. No, that was
heaven, right?
Glenn, I remember you were going into his garage and you were like searching through his gear and there was like just tons of gear, like all
like all that stuff stored under there. It was like Neutron biphases just sitting there in boxes with dust all over them. And crazy.
I remember you were freaking out. I was like, yeah, let's get some of that stuff out. But he didn't really care about that stuff, it seemed, at that point. I remember the best thing that Gary Wright ever did for me was he introduced me to Indian food.
Oh yeah.
Oh right.
Remember that, Gary?
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
He took us with his children to Indian food. We'd never had it before, and it I think it's a life-changing moment for me. But
Do you guys remember the Gene Wilder?
Oh
sighting?
yeah, I totally remember that.
that happened, right?
Yeah,
that did happen.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
were driving
Pulled
along
up at the light.
in the
What
car
happened?
to the right.
Okay, story goes is that we're driving along on the long road from Torrance to Palos Verdes, and it has many stoplights on it. So you go, you stop, you go, you stop. We went and we stopped, and I looked to my right, and I swear, Gene Wilder looked at me and gave me the classic Gene Wilder smile. And I'm like, no way. So as we pull away, I say to everybody, you guys, Gene Wilder in the next car. And everyone, as we pull up to the next light, all 6 of our faces are like, right? So for about 3 or 4 lights after that, it was like the same replay.
Yeah.
Classic moment. Though.
And didn't he give us a little wave on when he sort of took off?
When he finally left, yeah.
Yeah, he gave us a little wave. It's pretty cool.
Classic memories of that.
Very good.
And do you guys remember Kevin getting sunburn on his back and we had to put yogurt on his back?
Oh my God. You
Oh
know,
my God.
I'm the king of sunburns. Everybody knows I had my facial surgery and shit from basal cell cancer. And that was due to just being stupid in the sun. And man, I suffered so many sunburns, and that was one of them, I remember.
That's bad.
Yeah, it happened to me in just like a few hours sitting on the beach. But
Yeah.
I got a bad sunburn there because I went to the beach with Dale before you guys got down there, and he wandered off and couldn't find me. So I had to sit there on the beach for an hour and a half waiting for him to find me because I knew if I moved, he would be lost forever.
I thought touring after that, Ed, with you and everybody was great. I think you know what we did 2 tours. We did 1 bus tour, and did we do a van tour with you too, Ed, or was it just that bus tour?
It was
We did
usually, I
the
think it
tour
was
with the Volvo, remember?
bus tour.
That goes way back.
Well, that mean
That goes back
Ed and
before
the
Ed, though, I
Volvo.
think. The Volvo.
Yeah.
I think Ed joined on the first the bus tour that we did. It was like with Roman Reingruber and all that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was awesome. And
That name will trigger it all.
oh yeah, for sure. More
Also known as
wax.
grind
Wax Mike.
grabber.
Remember Wax Mike was on the tour too.
Oh boy.
Wax
Right.
Mike. Oh boy, I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
name
But
so-
yeah, Roman, and then yeah, we pulled out. I left my wallet in Chilliwack, I think. It was a bad start, but then we ended up in Toronto, in the lot of the Seaway Hotel, and oh my goodness, it was later than it should be for the snowstorm that hit us. It was
Right,
crazy. And then
Yeah.
speaking of
very challenging.
Indian food, we ended up at the Panch Mahal a whole bunch of times, like
Mhm.
That's
getting
when
the suicide hot.
Glenn, Joe and Glenn and I like to get like the most ballistically hot
Yeah,
food you could get.
International.
International hot.
yeah, and the chefs would be peeking out from the kitchen to
Like,
see the white
"You
guys
eating that?"
eating this stuff.
I learned my lesson
Glenn-
quick after that.
Glenn got a nosebleed.
That's right. It's so hot.
It was so hot.
Yeah,
And don't forget Kevin the Raj Nagar.
Right, another Toronto classic Indian
Yeah.
restaurant.
Yeah.
So
Al Nelson a lot too.
after that tour, we all come back to Vancouver, and then there was a big decision that went down in the band, and the decision, even Joe kind of says, "Hey, weren't you the one that said the Images should move to Toronto?" And then all of a sudden, Images has got the plan to move to Toronto, and then I guess lots of things were happening for me in my life at that point, and that's when we made. I think I cried the day where I came over to talk to you guys and was like saying, "Oh, I can't move. I'm gonna stay," and it was a sad day for me. And you guys moved on to Toronto, and you relocated there. Derek joined the fold, and the relocation to Ontario. You guys had some big gigs, ironically, again with Strange Advance at Ontario Place, and kind of like entered into the scene, kind of like a pretty polished band. What was that era like?
Who wants to answer that?
Yeah. It's
What
fantastic.
was-
Who
you guys
wants
were
to answer that? Joe, do you remember when we were first playing? So we land, and it was September 4th, 1986. Is that right, Joe? Or 85? 85. And we're going to the show, and that's, we hadn't seen we hadn't seen the guys from Strange Vans for a long time since that time, and the stage was rotating, and every time we were rotating, I always tell this story. There's Drew and Daryl with their arms crossed, watching, examining us, and because a lot of people, I don't know, Gary, you probably say the same thing. A lot of people were there to see us play. Would you agree?
Yeah, especially after we finished when it almost emptied.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't remember that.
And then it was like, what the hell? You know, I thought, what did I join? This is amazing. But it was just funny to see them, you know. Anyways, that's
we were really on a good uprise there, because we had done the Save It video, and Save It was on the radio, and so there were a lot of people that did want to see us, and that was originally, I think it was supposed to be Martha and the Muffins were doing those dates, and then Strange Advance took over those dates, but they hadn't really been doing a lot up to that point. But we did more dates with them after that too.
Was it that tour, or was it the previous one where we ended up at some booze can that was Catherine O'Hara's brother's after hours club?
That was,
and all that?
That's ringing a bell.
That was the Casby Awards.
That was the Casby Awards.
That was the most epic night ever.
Yeah, that's the night.
I remember seeing
Paul Schaefer.
Al meet out with Catherine O'Hara.
He did not.
I witnessed it.
Seriously,
He did, yeah. And then I saw Paul Schaefer like on the sidewalk, like necking with some girl.
But
but
all those guys just
go an
dropped
after hours party with us too.
But they were all dropping into character and out of character and doing Bob Hope, and
There was
it was just
Dave
magical.
Thomas,
It was amazing.
Gene Levy,
Yeah.
Catherine O'Hara, Paul Schaefer, all these, like,
Dave Thomas.
Dave Thomas,
Martin Short, I think.
Eugene
Martin
Levy.
Was there?
yeah. And so I smoked a joint with Eugene Levy. Yeah, that was a classic night.
Cool.
I wanted to say that because, like, I remember that I had gone across the street. We were playing the Horseshoe. This is why I can remember this that day, Joe. I got a good memory of this one. We were playing the Horseshoe when we were doing that. And I had gone across the street and I bought what was hopefully a long T-shirt. It actually turned out to be a dress, black dress. And Dale said, "Oh, I love that."
So we went to a lot of stores to look for that because you could not find that shirt.
No.
So the lady said, well, "Why don't you try this?"
This is a black dress.
Yeah. So Dale loved it so much he wore it that night on the awards show. But yeah, that was the birth of the Images in Vogue dress wear.
Yeah.
Made history.
Controversy.
Well, every show after that was sold out. That tour. Because everyone wanted to see that weird guy with the dress.
They wanted the dress. They wanted to see that new wave, you know, that new look that people were sporting.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty daring at the time.
Yeah, it
was.
was.
So moving to a new city is always hard for a band, though, especially when everybody basically made the move, right? Not all of you guys hadn't been living in Toronto yet, right? It was a brand new move for all of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So difficulties must have arose immediately about, you know, how this is all going to work, and then, you know, the pressures must have started to add on. I remember that a couple of years later, I moved in right next to Gary in Toronto. as your next door neighbor. And it was great because I could vicariously live sort of still with my buds, but see everything that you were going through at the time. And it seemed like
you had the smallest cats in the world. They had the tiniest little cats. I remember your cats, their paws were like toothpicks. I thought, what kind of cats are those? Do you remember your cat? I loved your cat.
Yeah, that was P&D in those days. We always, Gary and I always mark eras with what animals we had during what eras. And so for Gary, that would have been the pig and gray era.
And right, and he had pig signs, chief of security at the end of the hallway. We had it all cordoned off. Please, check in with Pig before you come into the building.
You guys remember Pig in the Middle? Pig in the Middle where we threw the bottle cap?
Yes.
And he'd jump up in the air and grab it or knock it down. So funny.
And
I
he'd
remember-
squeak. He'd squeak.
I remember Pig in a Bag. That was great.
Let's bring in Tim. Tim's kind of going into
Tim, where are you?
the new world of images, and there he is.
Does he have a
Where is
shirt
he?
on?
Man, I love that.
You know,
Hey, oh, you're out at the lake.
big yes, because I can.
Yeah,
I love
because I
it.
can.
Well, what? It's not like I have a gig to go to. You know.
So Tim, we should introduce you as what? You're one of the only Toronto natives in the band, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
His mouth isn't moving.
And also, oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. But my video's not working.
No,
Yeah,
it is
anyway.
working. It's just
A little
it's not
laggy,
at
maybe.
the same speed as your mouth, but it's okay.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I am the Toronto guy from meeting most of you we all literally across the street from each other at Church and Wellesley
That's right.
in 1986, 87 ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, next to
That
the
was-
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
That was the corner of cool in Toronto in those days, was it not? Church and Wellesley.
Yeah, the neighborhood,
Yeah.
you know.
Is it
It's
still
beautiful.
as cool these days, or is it weighing down?
No, not that. No, of course not. Nothing is, right?
Isn't it like it's the full out gay village now, right?
Yeah, but there's a certain element of opportunists that come in as well to take advantage of the older gentlemen.
Oh,
You know.
too bad.
So let me just go back in time. Tim, I just wanted to bring you in because we started talking about the band moving to Toronto and being now living in a new city, bunch of new guys in a new city. But right away, you guys have a Juno nomination for Most Promising Band, and you've got things happening and gigs that were nice sized gigs and everything like that. And then along comes D Long from Klaatu and wants to do some recording with you guys.
Mhm.
What was that experience like? Klaatu is like a kind of at the time people thought that it was the Beatles that had reformed and just secretly calling themselves a new band. What did you discover, Glenn?
For me,
He was great to work with. We really enjoyed that experience. I think we did 3 songs, Joe. Is that right? 3 songs with him?
We did 3. Yeah,
Yeah.
mostly in the house remix.
Oh, right.
It was a great fit for us.
What did you learn from him? Is there anything that you picked up from him, or was it a challenge, or was it like Gary Wright?
Just let us do our thing, and he helped with sounds and sound design, and it was really a big mix is what he did, and introduced us to the Fairlight. There was a lot of Fairlight on those recordings, so it was pretty fun in that respect. But
Excellent.
really kind of let us do our thing, which was what we always needed to have a producer do with us at that point.
Much better fit.
Yeah, most producers outside producers that we worked with before and after always wanted to cut us down to a more minimal sound where we have a very bulky sound. We have a lot of ideas, and part of what made us sound the way we did was that we found a way to fuse all those ideas together. And we have, that's why we had 6 people in the band. We had lots of ideas that properly put together were amazing. But D Long was able to sort through those ideas and make them sound really good. So those 3 songs we were really happy with, but unfortunately the album didn't happen.
Where would they release those songs?
They were released on the collections, Chronology and then Evolution.
No, the first one. Nothing
right.
Stays the Same was on the first one, and Look Me in the Eye and Someday are on the second one.
Right.
I'm really interested in listening to those. I don't think I've actually done a proper listen to those versions.
Well, those were songs that we actually worked on before we left Vancouver. So I'm not sure whether we have any warehouse tapes of those, but I remember working on Nothing Stays the Same that you were actually drumming on early on, and Look Me in the Eye probably as well. I'm not sure whether Someday was written yet at that point, but we also had She's Not Smiling back then. But
Okay.
we did demos of those when we in like October when we went to Toronto with that weird little basement studio, and then we used those demos to go up a level, and they were very releasable. Although the vocals were not quite finished, so we did a lot of work on those when Gary and I went into Hipposonic to kind of resuscitate those tapes.
It was, so that's more recently then. They didn't come out right away?
No, they came out in the 2000s.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Was there any videos from that era then, of those songs?
Look Me in the Eye, we did a video for.
Right, yeah.
That was 15 years later.
Yeah, later.
What year was that made?
2004.
Is that the one with the crane shots that are going around in the rain?
Yeah.
What was that like making? It looked like you guys got really wet.
Oh no, you're thinking of So Careful.
Oh, So Careful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was done in.
Tim was on that So Careful video. We were all night floating down the Fraser River with no life jackets.
Oh, yeah.
A raft.
It's everywhere.
And the director saying, if you fall in, that's it, you're done. We're not getting you.
And everyone from the mill was watching us on the sidelines.
Yeah.
Woo!
So Ed, I wanted to touch base with you on this. Like at this time, did you get involved with like the .com sort of whole situation, and then have sort of a business take off in that sense?
Yeah, that was way before then. At that time, Glenn and I wrote a bunch of songs together. We had This Is and put some tapes out, and they were pretty good, but nobody bit. And then I was looking at it, and I ended up deciding to go back to school.
Okay.
So I went to U of T for the next few years, computer science and commerce. And then, through the 90s, was involved in some consulting work. And then we had a products company, and that got all tied up in the big .com bubble. And that was a good thing, yeah.
Very good. Congratulations on that. So I know that you left the band right after that, and then that's when Tim comes in, right? That's when you come in, Tim?
Yeah.
That's the spell was the next project point at this point.
For me, it didn't seem too long after in the house because that's when the band was up for the Juno Award or Casby Award at Kingswood Theater.
That's right.
And I had just joined the band, and they wanted, it was like, come on up, and I'm sitting in my chair, and I think Joe said, come on, but I felt kind of silly because I wasn't involved in the recording of it. But I took advantage of the situation anyways, and it was a great time. But it was a little uncomfortable, but knowing that Ed had left and everyone was all friends, and then now that I get to still play and then play with Ed is awesome experience, because these are some of my best friends in the whole world, and I'm the new guy, and it's been 33 years.
Yeah, I know. We were just saying that Derek's been the drummer for 3,700 years, and he's the new guy.
Still the new guy, yeah.
I used to carve my own sticks back then.
But what's interesting now is that Tim joined the band and became the guitar player. And Tim, you came from National Velvet and Lisa Del Bello.
Yeah, at that time, yeah, exactly. It was National Velvet, Lisa Del Bello, Atlanta Miles.
Yeah,
it was I was doing all that at the same time.
Yeah, pretty happening guy. You were part of that whole Chris Shepherd crew with us all. We were all going out and having a good time there. Man, that was fun. That was a great time in the city in those years there.
Yeah, that stems from this band called Xylem, and Bobby Xylem, who's no longer with us, but just characters at that time when all of a sudden you were allowed to express yourself and when sexuality didn't matter. It'd be fine to be walking down the street wearing a miniskirt, which I've been known to do, but at that time, yeah, it was just a great time. But I think the freedom of breaking down barriers really came. I was inspired during the early '80s.
Gary, I remember that the apartment that we all lived in, we lived in a building where Images in Vogue lived in one apartment, Skinny Puppy lived in the next one, and then what was the name of the famous tranny guy that lived next to us?
Kinga. Do you know I
Kinga.
talked to Kinga last week.
Are you kidding?
I'm working on his music.
Oh man.
Yeah,
he had a pet raccoon.
He's doing awesome.
We had the most
he's doing great.
flamboyant building ever, and I just love it because you could just you could just play your music so loud, and everyone would be in the hallway like dancing, snapping their fingers. Oh man!
Remember, we had the choreographer across the hall, and then down the hall was Charlie.
Oh, Danny,
you know what he did, right?
I knew Charlie was going to come up. Oh, good old Charlie Lapointe.
Charlie.
And one time
Charlie,
I came home, and Charlie was sitting in my apartment. I don't know how he got in there. I must have left my door open. He was sitting in my apartment with no shirt on, and he had a flamethrower with him.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Good times.
I think it all ended with Charlie with a SWAT team storming his place, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And then we rehearsed down in the underground parking.
Oh, best rehearsal space ever.
Yeah. And except, do you remember coming in with gear, like bringing the van in?
Yeah.
All right, load out the gear, and then you try to get out, and the van is just lifted, and then now you can't get out. We had to put all the gear back in to get the van back out.
I lived in that underground parking for a few months.
I remember that.
I should explain that Images in Vogue had a rehearsal space that was part of the underground parking garage at the time. And it was so convenient. I don't know how you guys ever found this room that's basically open.
I actually found it.
Well, it was
even in the same building.
Intended to be storage lockers that never got finished.
Oh, okay.
And the guy who was the manager of the building, right? What was his name?
The little Italian guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So we scored it through him. I think we paid $300 a month for it.
Yeah.
24/7 access. Yeah.
What a deal. I mean, I remember the rent in that place wasn't that much either. It was like $1,000 a month or something like that.
Yeah.
Big place.
1,200.
Those days are over, I guess, now though. Huh?
Yeah.
Oh,
That was a lot of money in those days, though.
Yeah.
So
I think mine was $265.
Let's talk about the spell.
Sure.
Let's talk about the recording of the spell. I mean, there comes a time when you guys were thinking the name, maybe it could be the name that is causing some issue, or what was the original idea by coming up with a new name for the band, the spell?
I thought
That was
Dale
thing,
wanted to
right?
change the name.
Dale wanted to change?
Dale wanted to change the name. We were all going, I don't know if that's a good idea. And long and short of it is they went and put a sticker on the albums, all of the stores. They had to hand do it. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Because people did not know who the spell was. It was a big mistake.
And the record company loved that, didn't they?
Yeah.
They loved that. Yeah.
One of those things that really endeared us to them.
Oh, yes.
Is that with a new label then? That was with Anthem?
That was with Anthem. Yeah.
So this was a label, I guess, known for Rush and lots of successful.
And Max Webster.
Max Webster, lots of successful Canadian.
Alan.
How was it to work with them?
Well,
It was good and bad. There,
good and bad.
yeah, there were a lot of good things about it, but they didn't understand the way that we worked, which was always the problem we had with most people. They didn't understand that we could do things a certain way that were economical, where they were used to spending a lot of money on things, and so we spent a lot of money on things that we probably wouldn't have if we were doing things our own way. And they had a lot more say in what we did than we would like. We did a lot of things that they wanted us to do that maybe we didn't want to do.
We also ended up with the wrong producer again.
Absolutely.
Brutal.
Who was that?
With Jonathan Goldsmith.
Crawford and Goldsmith.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they produced Bruce Coburn and Jane Siberry. And we also did a couple of songs with John Switzer, who was Jane Siberry's co-producer and bass player. Those songs turned out better.
Yeah, John
I produced
was
a few
okay.
songs as well. But they were looking for, I think the quotation is, if you don't get played on an FM station in Edmonton, then you're nowhere. So that's the sound that they were going for.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that really, again, it prevented us from doing anything interesting. And then what they did was, in order to appease us, me maybe, they would let us do some things that were a little off because they knew they weren't going to be singles. So they really didn't want it to be like a radio band at that point. So there's a couple of tracks on there. There's a track that the remix of it's called "Where's Kenny." I don't know whether you ever listened to that, Kevin, but that's like it's a bunch of it would fit onto any record that you might have worked on as well. And then like we did this extended ending to "Daddy," which was should have been a separate song, and they let me put things in that I was trying to do, but they would also just delete things and erase things before we even got a chance to see if it would work. So I remember one thing, I wanted to do a recording of drumsticks on the floor, like I was trying to copy a front 2/4-2 thing that I had heard. And so Derek, Tim, and I were all playing drumsticks on the floor in the big room at McClear Place. And we were all doing that, and they had erased it before we even got into the room to listen to it.
Yeah.
And so then we had to redo it with a Fairlight because I insisted that part has to be there because I can be a little bit pushy sometimes.
So what was it that said that these guys are the wrong producers? They just would do stuff like that? Erase?
Well, again, they were nice guys. They're really smart guys, but they worked in the jingle world a lot, and they had a different view of what things should sound like. I think the engineer was a little disinterested because he had worked on a Spoons record that sounded good, but again, we sounded very.
They were too straight. They thought Brian Adams was punk. So.
Well, I just think they had a place to go, and that's where they were going to go, rather than let the music and the band drive the car. They said, let's go here, no matter. Okay, nope, come back, let's go here. And and I think they were told that maybe by the record company to make that happen. So
the other thing I would say, they were very nice guys, but it's the first time I felt kind of disrespected as a musician, because they came from the world where you just brought in a musician to play the parts. Like they would bring in somebody else to do this part. Yeah. And so they didn't feel that we played our instruments properly.
Oh, that's I can see that being a big. That's not.
That's Bob Ezrin and the original.
Oh, we lost him.
Oh.
Ed, are you were you still around for the spell, or had you departed?
No, I had departed. Yeah.
And Glenn?
Same.
And you guys, Glenn, did you go immediately to California? Did you go back to Vancouver?
I stayed. I stuck around till the end of '87 in Toronto, and then I went back to Vancouver for a few months till I got my immigration order and headed to California from there. So I was in California from about early '88 through just last year.
And Ed, you stayed in Toronto, right? You're still there now?
Yep, still in Toronto.
Enjoying it?
Yep. Yeah, it's good.
And you had kids too?
Yeah, Megan and Riley.
Happy Father's Day, everybody. I think
Thank
everybody is probably a father right now. Not me.
You're a cat dad.
There, your cat dad.
I think we can get Tim back, but
You're a stepfather.
I do have. I'm a stepdad. Yeah, as my lovely wife Rihanna just reminded me. But I'm also a father of lots of furry things. So
Yeah.
So
fur babies.
Ed and Glenn leave pre the spell. Gary, you were still there, and the album came out, and that had the video for "So Careful," right?
So Careful, yeah.
I like that song. I mean, it was good. You guys were still sounding like Images in Vogue. So basically, bad producers or not, I mean, it still sounded good. Were you proud of that song, or how did you guys feel at that point?
Well, it's a good song. I just thought the direction went somewhere that really wasn't the band.
Right.
You know, this is when the Cult was really big and all these guitar bands, and I got the sense that they wanted us to sound more like that.
Yeah, that's a song that we had performed with Glenn and Ed in the band. We'd written it in the early part of '86 when we were rehearsing out at that place in by the subway, end of the subway line, you know, the TikTok warehouse.
Oh yeah, in Etobicoke.
And we played it. So I've got some live recordings of us doing it. And it had a slightly different feel. Then when we started working with Tim, when we were kind of transitioning from Ed and Glenn, we started working with Tim because we'd known him through Dale. And we did a recording of it, remember, at the Popeye studio, where the guy wouldn't give us the tapes. We had to, just like with the Save It video, we had to get the guy drunk so we could get out of there with a tape of the song. So we recorded a couple of songs. We recorded a couple of songs there with Tim as demos, and So Careful was one of them. And that was quite different. I remember, Kevin, you heard it and you said, that sounds kind of tribal, because it was quite different. It had a lot more of the keyboards, but it still had the guitar. And then when we did the album version, there's a song on the album called One Hand Cleanses. And I'm going to get a little preachy here, but that was my take on the whole album, which is they cleansed it. So they took out all my parts. There's only one small keyboard part. So I got in trouble from them a few times because what I would do during that song is just walk around the stage because I had no parts. So I can be abrasive in my own, you know, passive aggressive way, I guess. But that's what I would do. I'd just walk around the stage. I had no parts. What am I going to do in this song?
Well, how can somebody take out a part of Joe's in an Images in Vogue song?
That's the producers not understanding what we were trying to do.
Right.
It's not that, you know, and then in those days, my ego was a lot bigger. Now I'm so compassionate, empathetic to everyone.
You're so much more humble now, Joe.
Yeah, I'm way more humble.
Yeah.
But really, that song had a certain feel to it that I thought really worked well. That was kind of a blend between what we did with Glenn and Ed, and with Tim in it, he gave it a slightly different approach on the guitar. But they loved the guitar so much that they thought, we don't really need those keyboard parts. And they also, interesting enough, I don't want to say too many negative things, but they also didn't want me to use the Prophet 5, which was kind of weird. It was my main instrument. They didn't like the sound.
Got really down. He did the Debbie Downer. Listen.
Yeah.
That's when you know you're in the wrong room.
Yeah. But then they, at the same time, they did bring in a Fairlight, and they brought in, I can't remember whether it was a DX1 or a GS1. One of those early prototype Yamaha keyboards, which was kind of cool to use. And they brought in some other stuff. But I mean, that was a situation that we had back with the first producer for the album that we left pretty quickly, Tom Tremuth, who wanted Tim to use this guitar, and they wanted Derek to use pads, not drums, and all those different things. You remember that? So
yep.
Anyway, enough of that stuff.
He had no clue.
Yeah.
Well, it just, you know, when you give up control like that because you think you have to do it for the label, it's, you know, it's obviously a mistake in retrospect, you know. That's
especially when they're removing parts and telling the keyboard player, no, I don't like that keyboard. I mean, that used to happen, I guess, probably regularly. And people thought like, oh, I'm going to be one of those type of producers. But man, I'm sorry you guys wound up in that situation.
Well, you know, not long after that is when the big change in the industry, turned into independent music, you know, coming out. And I think that was a reaction to those kind of experiences.
Right.
Bands were having, right?
Label molding and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Label manipulations. I mean, Skinny Puppy also had our share of that when we signed with Rick Rubin's label, but that was 93, a couple years later. But even still, to have that happen is not a fun experience.
No, not at all.
So inevitably, Images in Vogue sort of implodes. All that's left is Joe and Dale and Derek and Tim at one point.
Yeah. And then we did a few gigs here and there as people asked us to, and we had a friend from National Velvet, bass player from National Velvet, filled in for a few shows, and even we had another guy fill in for a couple of shows because Tim was out with Dalbello.
Rob Laidlaw?
Yeah, he did a couple of shows, but on guitar, what was that guy? Tom Robertson from Cottage Industry, or
Oh,
Yeah, remember? He filled in for like 2 gigs for us or 3 gigs, but it was kind of without Gary there and without the band as we knew it, it was really hard to sustain it, and everybody was just moving on to other things. I was starting my teaching career. I had a kid, and then another kid, and it was time to put it away for a while. Although Dale and I did have another band for a while. We started a band called Primary that was just a 3-piece band. And we did a little bit of recording and wrote songs, and we performed live a couple of times. But again, it's really hard sometimes to juggle 2 things at once. So we took a break.
So Gary, you were working in the film industry all along. Is that when you just went full time into dedicating yourself to the film world at that point?
Yeah, somewhere around there is when I got my first job on a movie, an unrealized movie called 13. And I went in there and I was an office PA, and I ended up driving Peter Fonda around, Nastasia Kinski, like all these like amazing people. And then that show went down. I never got paid, but it was a great first experience. And then I got a job on Night Heat, TV series Night Heat, as an office PA. And I just kind of went from there and slowly, worked my way up from the bottom. You and I worked on a movie called Daughter of Jerusalem together.
Right, yeah.
Also known as Foreign Nights, with this Palestinian director, Isadora, who was a real character. But Dwayne worked on that as well, right?
We both did, yeah.
You guys were just bored. I don't think we even got paid.
We didn't get paid. We worked our butt off for like about a month and a half, and we didn't get paid.
Yeah.
And we were promised we were going to get paid. And then so afterwards, Gary and I went to Jamaica with the money that we were supposed to make.
That's right.
And had a great trip, man. That was a phenomenal trip.
Well, then we ended up all kind of moving back. You and I moved back to Vancouver around the same time, I think 89. So, and around that time, I also started producing music videos. And I think the first music video I produced was for Skinny Puppy, which was Testure.
Right, and then you formed a Plasma Films, right?
That's right, yeah.
Thing where you went on to do like videos for quite a few bands, including, didn't Frontline Assembly get an award for the video you made?
Yeah, they did. Best alternative music video.
Awesome.
The Odds did some for them, but that was a great period. But I was also, getting my start in the film industry and working my way up. So it was a good time to be there.
Chunk Blower, man. But people always ask me about Chunk Blower, and the idea is that Gary wanted to make a horror movie so bad that Chunk Blower was really the. Long story short, we had met Alan Zweig and talking about Pressure Head after a meeting. Remember, with Clive Barker, we were sitting and talking with Clive Barker one night, and then got so inspired we came back home and started. Let's make a movie about Pressure Head. We got this story all together, and it was a killer story. We did the score for one of the songs, and then all of a sudden the story became too complex. So basically, Gary took another idea that Alan Zweig had written and turned it into the short film known now as Chunk Blower, which actually stars Bill Leave and Dwayne Gettle. Man, Gary, that must have been a trip to do.
And we almost killed Bill Leave on that. On that set, he almost burned to death.
The effect in there was a little too realistic, yes.
Yeah, no joke. But yeah, Chunk Blower was the movie we were developing, and we shot a trailer for it, and then we took it, to, Madame and, the LA, and we actually showed it at the Fangoria convention in LA. It got a standing ovation. So it was a pretty exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely.
The reality of raising money for feature films was another thing altogether. And I had it put together, but then the Gulf War happened and all that financing fell apart. So long story short, that was my, I kind of, I just went back into being an assistant director and working my way up. And that's what I've been doing.
Man, Chunk Blower's got to be made one day, as long as Bruce Paisley is alive.
Yeah, I don't think he is.
I wouldn't doubt it that he isn't. So Ed.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ed, did you continue on with music after you left Images in Vogue? Did you join any other bands, or did you?
No, not really. I mean, I pick up my guitar every day. I continue to play. Worked with Jackalope in the early 2000s wrote a song for them that was on the Born 4 album. And then just getting together with the guys to play every once in a while. But as far as out gigging or writing, no, I do some recording on my own and stuff. But yeah, I just kind of have this with me all the time.
I remember that you had a closet in your apartment at your when you lived in Vancouver, and you actually have a credit on the Skinny Puppy Back and Forth cassette for helping me. I can't remember.
I was the Fairlight operator at Mushroom Studios for a while, working with Jean Pichet.
Yeah.
And so on some of the sessions, I think I made some crazy noisy guitar at one point, but I certainly added some gothic church bells and dogs barking off of the Fairlight on some sessions. I think that's where that credit came from. And I think I'm credited as Sled.
Sled, yeah, that was your name, Sled.
Yeah, which was short for your nickname for me, which was I think Bobsled to Bog, and I have something like that.
God, I'm just reminded of that.
Because I was late all the time.
Snog, Bog. I can't remember. It was something funny.
That was me. That's me.
What about you, Glenn? Did you make music? Okay, first of all, I should say that the story ends well because Images in Vogue are still performing to this day. And Ed and Glenn have returned. And they have returned with the lovely lineup. Here's Tim once again. With Derek and Tim. And Gary is still in Vancouver doing his thing. But you guys are still carrying on the legend to this day. So
we did an opera house show, and what year was that, Joe?
2002.
So I came
that
out
was a reformation then.
That's a good venue. And then also I came out for what, 2013?
Well, don't forget the Commodore too.
Yeah, it was Commodore.
Okay.
Oh right, Commodore was 2004, and Derek didn't come to that because he was in his still like not down with flying. And ironically, Sean Stubbs, who played with Don in Numb, filled in for on drums, right? But Don came, and I think Ed, you were there too, right?
Yeah, at the Commodore.
So yeah, Don and Ed on the same stage.
Oh wow!
It was fantastic.
How was that, Ed?
Oh, it was great. That was a great show. It was a lot of fun. Who else was on that bill?
So Glenn was there.
It was Spoons.
No, I mean band-wise.
Oh, Spoons.
Okay, yeah, that was.
There's an ant on you. What?
I like that venue.
There's an ant on you.
Yeah, and playing with Don was great. It was cool.
So
yeah, we flew Don in from Ho Chi Minh City from Vietnam, and I think.
And Glenn, you were a part of that as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So just me missed out then.
What's that?
I'm the only one that missed out on that show then.
Yeah, I think there was a moment in time where it looked like it might happen with you, but then of course schedules and all that. But c'est la vie, hopefully it'll happen again sometime in the future.
We'll have to double drummer it there, Derek.
What's that?
We'll have to double drummer it.
I'll do that.
We had the we had the double guitar once at the Opera House.
Opera House. Yeah, that was
Right, Ed?
Yeah.
One song.
So now it's interesting because Tim, you kind of return and now play. You play the bass, and Ed's gone back to guitar.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's natural, and then kind of like part of the family. Gary, you played with Tim before, so he probably knows your style and everything. I like how it's still a happy family, and then everybody's still like just ticking along.
Yes, I mean absolutely. Whether or not I respect the past, and if I'm included in a gig, then I take it as a bonus, and I just love. I mean, I love every gig, and I love playing bass. I love playing guitar, and so every gig is a bonus. to me at this point.
I've watched a few of the gigs that have been online. It's great when people do that, by the way, and capture it, because we down in California can see it. But Ed, you always look like you're having a great time.
Yeah, I do. It's what's not to enjoy about it? It's just getting together with friends, and everybody that's there appreciates the music, and it's just so much fun. Yeah.
I get a good vibe when I watch it, and you guys are doing a good job carrying on the legacy. It's kind of a shame we couldn't have Dale join us today, but I think he had something other plans or some Father's Day thing he had to do.
Right.
That's right. He's a busy man.
Yeah, he is. What are you guys going to do today on Father's Day? What are you up to?
Well, I'm not seeing my kids today. I'm seeing them tomorrow because my son's birthday is on Tuesday, and he's turning 21 years old, which is
unbelievable.
Crazy.
How old are your kids, Ed?
Late 20s, early 30s. I'm not going to say exactly because one of my kids is my daughter, and that's anyway.
That's crazy. That's
what?
You're right.
Are you saying your kids are in their 20s?
Oh, 30s.
One of them.
Yeah.
One of them's in their 30s.
Yeah. We all have. Mine's 25, 23.
What's it exactly?
Are you kidding me? Wow, guys, this is just unbelievable. Ed, I thought you were kidding.
No. Yeah.
Wow.
Glenn,
well, make sure to say hi to Heather for me.
Oh, I will. Yeah.
Glenn, what about you?
I'm not doing anything. I'm just hanging out.
Is your son still living in California and you're back up
in San Francisco area? He's 33.
33. Oh my
33.
Jesus
I remember he was a roadie for us at the Opera House gig.
Right.
Wow.
Incredible.
That's pretty cool.
Wow.
What about
Mine
you,
is-
Tim? You got any
Mine
kids?
is,
There she is.
say hi, Vita.
Hi. Give your dad a hug
That's
for
what-
us.
Yeah.
And Tim's out on a lake there. What lake is that, Tim?
It's called Dummer Lake. It's right beside Stony Lake, which is all the folkies have places here. Murray McLaughlin and Gordon Lightfoot and Robbie Robertson and Mr. Ronnie Hawkins.
Dummer and Stoner, huh?
Breslaw.
I
Breslaw.
know.
Who got to name that stuff?
I know. That's probably why they all came here. And there's beautiful pictures in my friend Leah's, who's Ronnie's daughter. And you're in this room, and then there's John and Yoko on the same couch that you're sitting on. It's really cool. to
What were you saying,
be
Joe?
part of it.
I was just saying that when you talk about Ronnie Hawkins, our brush with Ronnie Hawkins was playing at the Breslaw. Remember?
I don't remember. You remember everything.
I played. Evan, you were there. It was on the bus tour in Waterloo. Breslaw is that little town. It was that place kind of like Porky's with the strippers that lived upstairs in the dorm. And
What?
we played in
Imagine what were you guys
it was
doing
big-
around
it was
the
big-
table?
Crazy.
Not me.
Imagine it.
What year was that, Joe?
That would have been late March 1985.
Was it a Saturday?
No, it was Thursday.
Yeah.
A long weekend.
We never played weekends.
Incredible, man. Joe's always got the numbers.
He does.
You must have elephants in your family. They never forget, Joe.
Hey, so I want to give some shout outs because we missed a couple shout outs last time.
Let's do it.
Of course, Al Nelson was
Al Nelson.
involved with the band, and we miss Al.
What?
He was just amazing.
R.I.P.
Come on for
Yeah,
Miss that guy every day.
yeah. And if you look at the Save It video, Al Nelson is the guy that opens and closes the big door that says Images in Vogue on it.
I have a complaint about that. He was in the videos more than I was.
That's right.
He's in the house video too.
That's right. That's right. He's like a kid or something, isn't he?
He's like walking around the house, opening the doors and looking into rooms.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
I only got 3 seconds in the video. He got like 2 minutes.
Well, Al was also the star of a video we did with Kevin for Hilt. He was the star, #1 on the call sheet.
Well, Isn't he also
Yeah.
in the house?
Yeah, he's in the house.
Yeah, he's going down the stairs.
That's right.
Yeah. My mom was always a fan of Images in Vogue and would dance a lot to all the videos and stuff.
Kevin, your mom is in the Lust for Love video.
Yeah, my mom is in the Lust for Love video. That is
Oh,
correct.
really?
She says
Wow.
guilty.
Yeah.
That's right. And
Oh,
Joe's
wow.
parents are in that, and who else? Not my parents.
Len's-
Oh, there it is.
Oh, there you go.
Wow. Oh.
Here we can
Who's
like
Bill
do
talking to?
a critique of what we did the last time we were all together here.
Yeah, this is the last thing Kevin did with the band was this video.
Wow.
Well,
My mom-
actually, you know,
My mom
played
loved
a-
Dale's outfit. She was like, "Man, that outfit,
Oh
I
yeah.
just love it."
I think the last thing Kevin did with us was a gig at the Commodore for a high school grad for McGee.
Yeah, I think this was after that though.
Was it? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
this was the week after. That
This
that was
the
June
last
the
thing
16th.
that I ever was around for. Ed, you had the greatest hair. Look at your hair.
Look at that hair. Wow.
And you notice you can see Glenn, you can see Kevin, you can see Ed, you can see Dale. Where am I?
I'm way back there too, Joe. Way back there.
Dale had great lips.
Tell me when you see me.
I don't think you're in this video.
Right.
Have you guys?
This was Al's greatest day because we wouldn't have been able to get our gear out of there if not for Al.
There,
Do you remember that there was something about when we finished the video, the guy that had been looking after the space got extremely upset because we were leaving. He didn't want us to leave. He was like going to try and keep us in there and keep our gear in there. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah, he wanted to be in the video for one thing.
Oh.
And so Al kept tricking him. Al got him drunk and made him think that we were going up instead of down on the elevator. And he took him to the wrong floor. He said, "Where's your gear?" And we snuck it all out while he was occupying the top floor.
Yeah, I think we were there a little longer than expected, as usual with these.
The
things.
guy said, "You're messing with my noodle."
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, quote.
Well, it is true. You don't see Joe very much in this video. You see,
There's nothing wrong with that.
yeah, you see Dale a lot, but
I like how we had a payphone, like actual payphone, brought in as a prop to that house.
Mom to pin him.
it's a save it video.
Not only that, but I think it was Al that spray painted the images in Vogue on the floor too.
That's
Right,
right, he did.
right.
Well,
So
guys-
I also wanted to mention, this is going back, of course, to the early days. Kim Clark Champness was our manager,
Right.
in the early days, and you know, Kim did a lot with us, and we definitely appreciate him, and we're still all friends today.
Huge big up to Kim Clark.
Yeah,
I mean, I understand recently he had some issues with the throat cancer or something,
yeah,
and has not been able to speak.
Well,
For
he came
As-
out with assistance, and he actually introduced us with the spoons, maybe in October,
oh,
November.
excellent.
Joe?
Yeah.
And,
Good to
and he
hear.
was DJing as well.
Good to hear. He was always a great DJ. He
Yeah, he's
actually
awesome.
worked at the Love Affair with
He did not bone.
him and Stephen Gilmore. Classic guy. And we should probably big up Stephen Gilmore too. I mean, you know, he's definitely part of the whole image of the band as far as the sleeves and the
Yeah.
original logo and all the things that were important to visually. That our gig posters were something I think we used to take great pride in. If we did a gig, we'd make a great gig poster and then spend an enormous amount of money printing them up and then just put them up on the street.
that's right. Now, do you guys remember, Kevin? Do you remember like the poster that brought us to Stephen?
Wasn't that the first Love Affair poster he did for E and Popular Front or something?
That's
like
right. That's right. Exactly. And it was in Long McQuaid, and we saw it, and we thought we got to get this guy. So I'm not sure exactly how we met him, but Joe, do you remember?
Well, you guys met him before I did.
Okay.
I remember he hated me when we first met him.
I think he was doing the
Big
E
problem with
cover.
me.
He was
Then
doing
we
the
become
E cover, and
great
he'd done
friends
the
after that.
2440 cover. So we went somehow.
That's right.
We went to meet him on the place on Harrow at Butte in an
That's
apartment
right.
building, his first apartment. And we went there, and he had the full painting of the E cover there. And we went, oh, that's really great. And that's when the first thing he made for us was the business cards, and then he made the first Love Affair poster.
That's right. And
Glenn,
first
you
Love
remember
Affair
playing,
poster being the Rising Sun, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glenn, you remember playing that E gig at Love Affair, the poster we're talking about?
Yeah, I do actually. I had an ARP 2600 and a Korg PS 3100 on stage, or
Are you
3200.
kidding? Man, what I would do to have PS 3100 Korg these days. What'd you do with it?
It was a rental because my ARP Quadra was in the shop getting fixed. So Long and McQuaid, it was actually a PS 3200 because it had the memory
3200.
bank on it. So they gave me that to use for that gig. So this looked really cool with that and the 2600 on top of it.
You know how much those are worth these days?
Oh yeah, it's
PS
insane. 15 grand. It's insane.
15, 20 grand.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough at around the time when we first started buying our analog synths, when they were being practically given away. I scored a bunch of things, like I have a CS80 that I got.
Oh no!
Yeah, I scored a CS80 for $180
Wow.
because the guy didn't want to carry it around anymore.
Wow.
He was the guy that used to play in a cover band in North Van called the Dirty Diamond Coal Company. You guys
Really?
remember that DDCC?
I remember them. Yeah.
Remember? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that guy had all the gear. They played Loverboy covers and all that shit. So he came in one day and he gave me that, and I bought the Oberheim 8 voice that used to belong
Whoa, come
to
on.
the Steve Miller Band, if you can believe it. And I wish I had hung on to that thing. I think I sold it for like $2 grand, which is, you can believe it. And then I also got an EMS VCS3, which is now worth like, it's stupid, like 25 grand or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then to top it all off, one day this guy said, we had heard that this guy had an ARP 2500 that he wasn't using. And so we asked a couple friends, and he said, oh yeah, he's not using it. And he said, if you want to go pick it up, you can use it. You can have it. And then she said, okay, but the synthesizer is in Nelson, BC. So Dwayne drove all the way to Nelson, BC, because that's where his girlfriend was working at the time. He picked up an ARP 2500 and brought it back, and we've had it ever since.
Wow.
We got
Wow.
That thing's priceless.
I don't
Is
even,
that John
I would hate
John
to
Mills
think how much
cockle?
that thing's worth.
Yeah.
So it's great that when, you pick up a piece of gear, and then in the old days, and then later it's like, what? Because like even like the CS80 is worth 15 to 20 grand, I think.
At least.
Yeah.
The guy,
Easy.
the DDC guy must just be aching thinking about it.
Yeah.
You guys have all of your old gear still, or did you move on?
Moved on.
I
Glenn?
still have my stuff. If you look back here,
Totally different.
here's the strings, and there's the Pro Soloist. So
Nice.
that's the 70s gear. And then down here is my Alpha Juno 2. And down here, you can't see it, is my Roland MC500 sequencer that I remember Dwayne and I fooling around with quite a bit, trying to learn to use it back when you guys was living there.
What's that up there? It looks like an ARP 2600.
Yeah.
Is it? Oh, you see
Oh, yeah.
it. Is that one of the new ones, or is that an original?
It's an original. It's 1971.
But you see, that's worth like 10K plus.
Yeah, I've got it for 1,500.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's the type of stuff you hold on to.
Yeah.
What about you, Ed?
Yeah, I have my original guitars and such, but yeah, amps have all changed. I use Line 6 Helix, and then for recording, just my laptop, Pro Tools, Ableton, that kind of thing. But it's all digital now. Yeah.
Garrett,
Oh,
did you ever venture into the world of Simmons or
I had actually one of the first kits, and the guy from Saga was the Canadian dealership.
That's right.
Remember?
That's right, yeah.
So I got his second kit, whatever. I had two of them, but I mean, playing those things, as you remember,
the first generation. Yeah.
you'd get tendonitis in your hands.
Carpal tunnel.
Oh, yeah.
Tabletop-itis.
What's that?
Tabletop-itis.
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of faded out, but I still have Roland TD8, which was one of my favorite brains from Roland. It's sort of a collectible one.
That's what you're using now?
Yeah, still use it. Like I got a couple other brains, but I really prefer that brain. It's just it's got some good sounds, and you can't. I mean, there's more you can do with the later brains now, where you can sample and it's got individual outs. Mine has 4 outs, but I just like it. It works really well. And I have the original kit that we used, the Milestone kit, which I had the rototoms. I still have that, electronics on the side.
That's going to be in the house video, right?
Yeah. That's sitting in my brother-in-law's studio. So I got 2 live kits because I play in about 4 bands. And I got a custom-made Yamaha kit and 2 other kits downstairs and an electronic kit. Electronic kit I use with images. Sometimes when I'm playing the spoons, I'm also doing some gigs with When in Rome. They're the guys from LA. He had the Napoleon Dynamite song. I'm playing with them. Had a couple shows with them.
Nice. Let me know when you're in LA.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's going anywhere right now.
Yeah. Well, they're supposed to do some live 80s show. So Gord Depp from the Spoons is playing with Flock of Seagulls. He's a guitar player.
Oh, really?
So they're supposed to be playing there on the 26th, coming up.
Of June?
Drive-in tour?
I think 26th of July. I think something like that, or 20. Yeah, because they're opening the board on the 21st. He has to get his plane ticket. I think they're playing there on the 23rd. Kevin, you should go down there because it's Wang Chung. It's everybody, right?
Well, I heard about that gig, but I wasn't too sure if it was still happening or not. But have they moved it to the drive-in sort of setup so that people?
They may have. I think they're doing something like that.
I think so. Yeah.
That's
happening all over the place now. Those drive-in gigs.
Yeah, the girl from Bow Wow Wow and whatever. There's a whole bunch of people playing with them.
Mm-hmm.
There was a huge fest that was originally booked here that had like every band in the world on it. That obviously got put off, but there's got to be some remnant of it left.
I had tickets for that.
What's it called? Oh, they canceled the whole thing. Cruel World.
They
Yeah,
did.
it was called.
Fully canceled.
Yeah. Somebody's got a puppy. So, Gary, you had a special bass back then. Wasn't it like a Firebird or a Thunderbird bass that you used?
I had pretty much every bass ever made. I think my first bass was a Rickenbacker.
Yeah.
And then I had a Music Man.
I remember the Music Man.
Precision. I mean, I had a Warwick later on.
Had a nice Schecter.
Schecter, yeah.
Rich.
Yeah, that's right. Rich, yeah.
Got a
Now I've got a new
Yeah, where is it, Gary?
Jazz.
Oh, yeah.
Here.
We should mention that Gary has been inspired since the last chat and has picked up. Did you get a Pro 3, Gary?
I saw a black
My
jazz.
new, Fender Jazz bass, right?
A Fender
Yeah, I saw
Jazz.
it.
And then I've also got this happening here. Woo.
I'm out of a gig.
How are you enjoying that?
But wait, I have to actually put the notes on the keyboards because it's been so long. But Tim, actually, we'll have to have a chat because there's a couple of things I can't remember.
I'm not telling you. I'll never get
yeah.
again.
Hey,
Tim has all the secrets now.
that's right.
Yes, of course.
What a
Well,
pleasure
who else do
talking
we-
with you guys again. This has been a treat, and the future of Images of Vogue. What is to behold us in the future? Is there any plans to record, guys?
Well, Joe was supposed to send off a song, right, Joe?
I sent you the song.
Oh, yeah. See? It's just testing to see.
Glad you're paying attention, Derek.
We have lots of things on the go, but it's really hard to finish something, especially because we had some gigs booked in these last few months that haven't happened.
Right.
We're not able to get together. And I think we work best when we're together in one room where everybody's there. It's a lot easier to work out ideas, and especially for Dale to really get to know what we're doing. But we've got a lot of things that are half done or 3/4 done or 92% done. But we'll get something done somewhere, you know, and so we'll get something. And we may even do a gig someday in the future.
I'm always looking forward to that. And as soon as you guys know when there is a definitive gig, let me know and I'll hype it on my social. So keep me posted and I'll keep everybody posted. But thank you to all of you guys, all 45 of you.
The world's largest band. Aren't we in the Guinness Book of Records?
Yeah, we must be.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
would be great. We should all just rejoin and then we can just be a big, giant.
World's largest band.
We
Yeah,
could
the
be
light.
like
3 guitar players, a
Earth,
couple
Wind, and Fire.
Yeah,
7 keyboard players.
synchronized dance moves. I can
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah, we
That's
could do
right.
that.
That's right.
I'd like to see that, man. I'll work with it anytime you guys want. All right, you guys.
Great seeing everybody.
Great
All right.
seeing you all. Thank you to
Bye.
all the
Tim.
fans
Bye,
of
Ed.
Images
Bye,
in Vogue and all the supporters of Images in Vogue in the internet land. And thank you for supporting music. And then thank you for Patreon people to support the Patreon world. Thank you so much. You guys, love to you.
Thank you for doing this, Kevin. Thank you for hosting.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you for joining in. Ed, so good to see you, man. Derek, Tim, I haven't seen you guys so long. Glenn,
Yeah.
Joe, love to you guys. See you guys soon.
Okay.